All right. Hello to my Vivit, Ohio user community. This is Rocky Pisto. Been a love leader for this group since 1999. I started at Tracy Stats at the time from CompuServe when it was the ITOM, just the ITOM group. And in about, I think, 2008, when HP acquired Mercury, we started adding the ADM groups, the testing groups. And so today, we have a great event planned for you. It's called Automation Complexity, Boost Release Velocity. And this is our first Ohio virtual lug event. So we look forward to hearing what we're going to be talking about today. And we'll talk about ask questions and those kind of things. So let's go to the next slide. There we go. And it's sponsored by your lug group. And, you know, on the testing side, I think Jeff's here with us, Jeff Comley. He's one of the lug leaders focused in the testing space over at Owings Corning in Toledo. And some of you that are on this call have been out there with us when we had events out there, and it's just a great facility to host a lug meeting. So can't wait to hopefully start these things up again physically and in person so that everyone can connect. Next slide, please, Paul. And again, I'm Rocky Pisto. I work for Vivit these days in their sponsorship space, helping partners and Micro Focus share their content with our community, just similar to what we're doing today. Next. And of course, today's speaker is Paul Bradley, and he's the ADM Solution Architect at Micro Focus. And Paul, where are you from?
I'm based out of Denver, Colorado.
Okay. That was the home of, well, Fort Collins was the home of OpenView way back when. So that side of the house, a lot of folks from there. All right, next slide. So this is a live session. We're recording it so that you can share this with your colleagues after we're done with the session today. And so it's recorded. We want you to engage. If you have questions, you know, based on what I saw from Paul's resume, he's been a customer, he's been a developer, he's been in the space a long time, and knows it beyond just a solution architect role. So feel free to reach out and ask questions. And as you know today, I think one of the things that may have gotten some of you is that there's a free lunch. So we'll make sure that people that have attended will get a e-card for lunch, and probably not today, but in the future, so that you can take advantage of that. Next. So a little housekeeping. This is GoToMeeting's control panel, and there's place to ask questions. You can see that blue line going up to, this is a new tool for me too, where you see the kind of question thing normally. So you can ask questions there, and we'll try to get to them during the presentation or after, whatever you're comfortable with, Paul, and we'll go from there. I'm not sure we're going to be showing webcams of anyone else other than the folks that are here. Or else it'll start looking like the Brady Bunch. Go from there. Let's see what that question is. What's the question? Okay, no introductions. Gotcha. Okay, next slide, please. So just a little bit about Vivit for you that may not know us, but I think most of you do. We've been around since 1993 as the OpenView Forum evolved into Vivit when HP got rid of all the branding of the individual products that they collected back in 2008. We're up to 39,000 members worldwide, lugs everywhere, special interest groups. So if there's an area that you're really focused in, I also recommend to join the SIGs, and you'll find that on the Vivit website. And these are very targeted to specific product use of the Micro Focus tools. And they put on webinars like we're doing here today for our lug event. And if you have ideas of things you'd like to see in the future, please let us know, and we'll try to do it. This virtual thing might be just one of the ways to make things happen because everybody's so busy and can't take a whole day to disappear from their office. So feel free to share any thoughts that you may want us to talk about in the future. And again, ask questions for today. What's the difference? We're not an organization that's owned by Micro Focus. We're independent. It's basically made up of you as practitioners and our partners, and we work together with Micro Focus to bring you the content. And as you can see, it's made up about 50% of the people that actually do the work, and 50% of the members are practitioner decision makers. So we are you. We are the customer, and we want to make sure that you're getting what you need to grow your career, and we can lay us on with Micro Focus to make that happen. Next slide. So with that, I think I'm turning it over to Paul.
Sounds good. Thanks. So before I get started, I just wanted to spend a couple of seconds and talk to you about our virtual universe coming up here mid-May. This year, as opposed to years in the past, we've moved our event to a virtual one. We've waived the fee for registration. So if you're interested in finding out more about Micro Focus products and roadmaps of things coming down the path, I highly recommend going to university.microfocus.com/Americas and finding out and registering there. There'll be a bunch of events that'll be recorded, live events that you can watch again later in life. But if you do have some time, May 19th through the 21st, highly recommend logging in and keeping track of that. If not, you can always reach out to myself or any one of your sales reps. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with today's presentation and quasi demo. So like Rocky was saying, I'm Paul Bratlin. I'm an ADM solution architect. Up until about 2 years ago, I was sitting in a lot of your guys' seats. So I was a customer of Micro Focus, spent a lot of my career in the ALM tool. Working with individual companies. I get hired about every 2 years to a new company where somebody would buy and install ALM and then not really put any procedures or policies around it, and it would kind of grow out of control. Then someone would call me and say, hey, we need a little help. So I'd come in as an admin there and help with policies and procedures, not only in the tool, but just in general with process control and things like that. As I was doing that, I became a developer in certain areas, QA manager, automation lead, performance guy. They kind of had me do a bunch of different things. As my wife says, I tend to get bored a little easy, so they kept throwing new different challenges to me, and it worked out great. A little over 2 years ago, Micro Focus approached me and I approached them kind of conversation, and this is a great fit for me. I get to come around, usually face to face, but today we're virtual and talk with folks like yourself on the Micro Focus tools and how they can help you, or just policies and procedures without the tools that can help you. So today we're going to be talking about automating complexity for release velocity. So these slides, we'll do kind of a high level, and then as we get in through it, there's a couple of these slides that have recorded videos that we'll talk through. We can do live demos with you guys individually or as a larger group, but for today, in our time interest, we've just got these recorded and put into the slides. After today's session, I will be sending these up to Vivit so they can upload to the same user group, and then you guys can have these to play back along with the video. Other than that, as questions come up, just go ahead and raise your hand or come off of mute, get somebody's attention, and we can answer them on the fly. If you don't have any questions, that's totally fine. We'll keep talking and we'll cover those bases. So right before I start, I should have probably asked this earlier. Can everybody hear okay and see my screen?
Absolutely.
Through good.
Perfect. All right. So why are we here talking about release velocity today? So what we have here across the kind of middle of the screen is pretty typical stuff, right? We need a code, then hopefully somebody's unit testing that. Security and integration should be happening, maybe not in that order. Yeah, things along these lines. And I'm sure every one of you guys have either more things in this stream or slightly less streams, or it might be in different order as we go across here. But if we look here in this time spent, coding is 120 minutes. That's a really effective coder, by the way. But, hey, spend 120 minutes doing that. Then they have to email the supervisor. The supervisor would kick off a 30-minute unit test. Then they would email the technical lead for validating security, so on and so forth. So if we look here, we get about 7.5 hours, almost 8 hours worth of touch time of a human being touching and moving things along with that. But if we look down here at the bottom, we have what we like to call kind of time waste, right? So you might be coding, you're emailing the supervisor might be tied up in meetings, so he doesn't really get to your request for a half an hour. Then you email the system team, it takes them 2 weeks because they're already in a sprint or they're already assigned, nobody's available to pick up that. So you get a week waste here, 2 weeks there, an hour and a half there. So you get this whole 7.5 hour, 8 hours worth of actual stuff that would help you get to the release, and your cycle time kind of blows up to 6 weeks. Now, this is an example. Yours might be shorter than this, might be longer than that. But if we look at release velocity, right, we got less than a full day worth of work to get something out the door, ending up taking, in this example, 6 weeks to get out the door.
That's great.
Yeah. So what we're trying to do, and most companies are trying to do out there, is how do you get that done faster? So one of the newer ways of getting that done is DevOps. Now, DevOps is unique to every company, and if you ask, if I took you guys all off mute, and those of you who are starting to play with DevOps or Agile, everyone's got their own definition of what DevOps is and Agile is and how they do it at their company. But again, a really high level, what we see here is we've got our developers on the right. They're going to check in code to a version control system. They fire that off into a CI server that fires it to the delivery server and the asset server. And then, just in the interest of time, I'm going to click through here fairly quickly. But yeah, so then the delivery server fires off to the asset manager, deployment, the test server gets it, that goes over there. As you can see, we get this nice spaghetti mess of things going through. Now, what a lot of companies are doing in this space is they're buying tools to help facilitate this, right? So poor Susan or Bob or Jan don't have to be the one that says, oh, the test server needs updating. Let's go ahead and fire that off. Okay, the staging server needs that development control. So there's tools to get that done, and that's what a lot of this tool chain is, right? So the hopes of getting the tool chain set up for you is, instead of the 6 weeks like we were seeing in that earlier slide, we're getting this down to the hours or days of approach. So another way we're helping with release velocity is we're bringing in AI. So before we talk about AI, we should probably figure out at a high level what AI is. So AI at a very high level is an area of computer science that emphasizes creation of intelligent machines. It's software that's trained to perform simple tasks as well as complex tasks. And this is definitely fun YouTube videos. If you ever want to get around and see what people are doing with simple AIs all the way through fairly complex ones. I know there's a lot of services out there that are not only with YouTube, but a lot of the training sites out there are doing free 30-day trials, and you can get really into some fun AI in here. But in today's conversation, we're just keeping this at a high level. AIs use pattern matching algorithms to help make their decisions, and AI engines use input data and kind of say, okay, here's the input, here's my output, my expected result was this, is that right or wrong? Applications that are using that, CT and MRI scans. So a lot of the times when you go into the hospital and you get those done, they're feeding that into a system to kind of do the easy ones, right? So if you've got a broken leg, they're doing the x-rays via AI, and then they're having a human double check that, right? There was a video bouncing around about Tesla recently recognizing a stop sign. So they actually had the code view of what the cameras are seeing there, and it's really interesting to see all the inputs that's coming as it's coming up to the stop sign and determining, is that a stop sign, do I need to watch for cars, so on and so forth. And then as probably the vein of a lot of us, the automated response and online support, right? So you ask a question in a chat, more often than not, that's being an automatic reply from an AI engine until you confuse it enough, and then you get a human. So why are we bringing AI into software automation? So here with Micro Focus, we have what we like to call our 3 user bases, right? So we have our coded DevOps dev tester. This is the person with the IDE. Usually they're very familiar with writing in their favorite programming language and they go on. You also have an automation engineer that's more in the QA space, but knows their developing language. And these are usually the people doing the automation. Whoop, got a little background. Can somebody go on mute? Thank you. And then our final area that we kind of see is the codeless user tester. And these are the business analysts, the domain experts. They may not know how to write code, but they do know the systems very well. And they're usually the ones that say, hey, we're going to be changing this. And this is kind of the testing that we need done when we change those sort of things. So test automation challenges for all those people, right? Right out the gate, as everyone is moving to better, stronger, faster releases, the paces of those releases go up, right? Back when I graduated out of college and started in the workforce, we were definitely waterfall. It would be months to years before we do releases, right? If we had a new application coming out, that wasn't done in 6 months or a year. That was done in a large swatch of time, right? Nowadays, those releases have to come out, weekly, monthly, as fast as possible. Automation coverage. Well, even with the best of tools, what we're finding over the years is automation rates are low. About 30% of testing is done with automation. And a lot of those barriers for that are skills of the people needing to do that, platform availability, and also maintenance, right? So we'll get into this later in the presentation, but you have maintenance costs, right? So you develop a script for release 1 and somebody ends up changing something, that script may or may not work for release 2. So those are kind of the challenges that we see, and hopefully with AI, we'll show you how that we can solve that for you guys. So let's look at it as an example. So today we are going to use the Advantage Online Shopping application and website. It's basically, for those of you who haven't seen it, it's a test system that is available to everybody. It's an e-commerce application, so you can go in there. As you can see over here, you can buy laptops, headphones, tablets, act like you're doing that, add those to a cart and purchase them, create logons, so on and so forth. This application, like I was saying, is available for Android devices, iOS devices, and a website. And as you can tell here, there's a logon screen for each one of those, or a logon icon. So today's challenge right now with setups is that's going to take you 3 scripts to do, right? So Android and iOS scripts don't play well together because Android does things slightly different than iOS, and web acts differently than both Android and iOS. So you're going to have 3 scripts to do the same login, right? And then if something changes in any one of those things, you're going to have to update that script. So this is a quick little video, and again, this is a video of built into the slide deck. So I'm just going to hit play here. If we guys want to find out more, please reach out and we can do a similar demonstration live or virtual live as we're doing now. But this way, this is in the slide deck so that you guys can have this and replay later on if you're interested. So what we're going to do here is we are going to kick off a quick script. Those of you familiar with UFT, we've got device, use the device, go to the app, tap the menu for profile, type in the username, which we're doing now. We're going to type in the password, and we're going to type login, and voila. On our Android device, we have successfully logged into that device. So life is good. Now, the developer and business get together and they decide that instead of having the profile or the hamburger menu on the right-hand side and the shopping cart on the left, somebody decided that we're going to switch those 2 icons, right? More often than not, these things happen in life. We find out that, we get more people clicking on the shopping cart or more purchases if we make this small change, so we do this change, right? Now, here comes the problem. We have our lovely script from release 1 where we're going to log in, and now we are in release 2. We've made that change. As you can see on the left-hand side, the cart is now on the right as opposed to the menu. So our script wakes up, it says tap the menu, now tap profile. Well, we tapped the shopping cart in our script. And as all of you are familiar with the fun UFT, we get the lovely runtime error, basically saying we had a run error, we don't know what to do. We asked, we were hitting profile and we were going to type in our username and password, and guess what? We don't recognize username or password on this screen, so we just stopped running. And we get this lovely little error report. So why did that happen? Oh, go ahead.
I had a quick question.
Yeah.
Just from what I hear, you're out there, you're talking to customers all the time as a solution architect and kind of guiding them through this process. When it comes to education, what are you seeing? Are they, when they buy the solution, are they getting trained, or are they, I don't know how that works, but a lot of times the management says, look, just read the manual. And I just don't know what are you seeing out there?
Yeah, so a lot of the UFT user base, and again, company A might be different than company B. A lot of this is the self-trained knowledge, just like a lot of programming languages in general with developers and QA folks. Personally, for myself growing up, a lot of the companies didn't have a lot of training budget, so it was pretty much here. Here's this tool, go ahead and figure it out via, pre-YouTube, via tutorials and user guides and things like that. What we're doing now with Micro Focus is we will obviously help. Part of my role is to help get you guys up and running with UFT or any of the Micro Focus tools that you've bought. But yeah, overall, a lot of companies are using kind of Bob trains Jan and Jan trains Susan approach to this. So having to know, if you're an automation specialist, having to know how to make UFT scripts is definitely a part of that job. Now, with the newer versions of UFT coming out, and this is already out, what I'm showing you guys, and free for everybody who already owns UFT. This isn't a new add-in that you have to have. This is part of UFT. And we'll see later in the demonstration here that this is free, and it will make it more of the native processing language. So instead of having to do app.dev ... button click, it'll be more towards, hey, I want to log in.
Well, that's great.
Any other questions before moving on?
I think we're good.
Awesome, thanks. So why did that happen? So let's, the previous slide, we made that one change and it went through and voila, it blew up, right? So the reason why that happened is, as you can tell here on the right-hand side of the screen, the login button was part of the object repository, and since that object repository changed, guess what? UFT got a little lost on where to click that button. It found a button and it clicked it. It may not have been the login button. So wouldn't it be great if, as a human, we all saw that change, right? We all know what the login button looks like. Wouldn't it be great if we could get UFT to do that without having to constantly update it, right? So this is where Micro Focus said, okay, let's make this happen. AI should help with this. So AI spans a bunch of different things, as you can see here on the screen, from problem solving all the way to general intelligence, social intelligence, so on and so forth. Micro Focus is concentrating on three kind of areas for the UFT approach here and spreading on. So we have perception, which is computer vision. So just as a human can look in there and see, hey, this is a login screen, this is a profile, so on and so forth, how can we get our systems to do the same thing? And then we went with machine learning and deep learning. So supervised learning, sitting there and training the neural network how to say, hey, this is a hamburger menu, or this is a login button, things on that nature. And then the unsupervised learning, letting the machine, the neural network, figure out, hey, best guess. Given what we've trained you, take your best guess and go ahead and do that. So speaking of training, now this will be fun interaction for you guys here. I need a volunteer here. What does everyone see on the screen here? As everybody is either trying to figure out how to unmute themselves or trying to figure out, well, they all look like something.
Canines.
All right, canines, very close. The first two are canines, or dogs. The last one is a very cool dog, right? He's got the sunglasses, life is good. Next question for you. Now what do you see?
Go on, Jim.
This gives me time to get water while you're thinking.
Well, it's 2 cats and a cool cat.
Awesome. Well done. So just because you saw the last screen where I said the cat or the dog having sunglasses obviously makes it a cool dog. When I now showed you cats and one of them had sunglasses, your brain went in and said, hey, that's a cool cat. So how did that happen? How did that magic happen in your brain? Well, humans have what we have is a neural network, right? Your brain sits there and trains and trains and trains and goes, oh, okay, given the information, the picture I see, given the classification that I've already learned or been trained recently, I can now identify those, which is really awesome, by the way. I've got a 2-year-old, a 9-year-old, excuse me, a 2-year-old, a 8-year-old, and soon to be a 10-year-old. And this is their neural network creation. As a baby, they could not distinguish a cat and a dog. No one can for that matter at that age, but you know how that goes. About the time they're 1, they know how to perform that task. Well, how do they do that, right? Well, my wife and I, my parents, Sunday school teachers and preschool teachers and everybody else sat there and helped as much as they could and basically said, every time you misqualified a dog and not a cool dog, we're going to sit there and say, no, well, good, close, you almost got there. Let's say it's a cool dog, right? So we kept training that brain until that brain could take over and say, oh, okay, I recognize a dog as a dog and a cat as a cat. And if they wear sunglasses from now on, I'm going to call that a cool cat or dog. All right, one more volunteer. What's on the screen now?
They're all login screens.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Yep. So these are all login screens, right? We noticed that, right, by taking a couple of seconds and looking at the screen. But I guarantee you a lot of the automation software out there or testing software in general will have a hard time, right? Because these are 3 different login screens with different buttons and formats and so on and so forth. These last 2 are Office 365, right? But this is Office 365 on a web, and this is more like the pop-up one, right? So scripts, we're going to have a really hard time doing that, let alone, software in general. So this is where deep learning is going to come in, right? So this started way back when people said, hey, wouldn't this be great to start on artificial intelligence? Before my time, I'm not born in the 50s, closer to 1970, 80s. But yeah, so we had this idea way back in, not way back, fair amount of time back. And we keep progressing through how do we make computers smarter and smarter and smarter so they can take more and more tasks off of us, right? Until very recently, we haven't had a lot of success, but more recently, we've started gaining a lot of data, right? So everybody's got a profile out there. Google knows when you search for things, we feed that, so on and so forth. Computing power is becoming very cheap and very inexpensive. You can stand up clouds, buy AWS, Azure, however you want to do it, and get computing power for next to nothing really quickly over, seconds to minutes of getting that spun back up, right? So computing power and big data, those have led to creation of deep neural networks. So we have our cat and dog example from before. We keep feeding those into our deep neural network with some supervised learning and some unsupervised learning. And if we feed a picture of a cat into there, hopefully the deep neural network goes, yep, I've got that. That is a cat. And of course, we want to feed that into programs. I'm just keeping track of time. That way we don't run out of time for the background here. So deep learning is everywhere across multiple industries here. So we have video capturing via done AI. So the ability to do, your video classification, speech recognition, stuff like that. Like I was saying before, cancer cell detection, actually a little more recent now. We have a lot of companies using AI to detect the COVID-19 in blood work and things like that, and trying to get those response times, testing results down to seconds instead of hours and minutes, which is pretty awesome. All right, so same sort of script that we were showing you guys before, but one of the bigger differences here is if you look here, instead of our fun application.click.device, we've replaced it with AI util. So in this, what we're going to do is very similar to our login script. We are going to log in and we are going to search for a laptop, a 17T laptop. We are going to, I'll go ahead and hit play here. We are going to do this on an Android device and an iOS device. And we have this done. As you can see over here on our right-hand side, we're going to go ahead and launch this first on an Android device. So we'll go ahead and run this. And then as the script is running, we are going to click the hamburger menu. We're going to profile.click, input the username and hit the password. And then we're going to look for an HP Envy 17T. Click that and let's add that to the cart. Now in the same script, we've got this set up with our mobile, and now we're going to go through and say do this. As you can tell here, we've switched over to an iOS device. And this is the same script running, right? So as before, previously, you were going to have to write a separate script, right? Because iOS looks differently than Android. This is an application built on both of those. So it would interact slightly different. Maybe the cart was in a different location, all those fun things. So this is one script that we wrote very basically, and we kicked it off. And it works for both Android, iOS, and we don't show it in this video, but it also works for web. So what we're showing here, and let me pause real quick, is actually, let me get to this one pop up. So what we did in the results here, the AI said, when you said you want to click on profile or click on the hamburger menu in this case, this is what I clicked on. So in this case, we were on an iOS device. On the previous example, it showed where it clicked for the Android device. And this way is, by doing this, when you guys run your own scripts with the UFT, you can come through after the fact and say, hey, that script didn't operate exactly like I wanted. Let's see where it clicked as it went through, right? So previously, you were telling it exactly where to click, right? Now we're asking the computer to take its best guess on what hamburger menu to click on there, right? So very powerful right there. Instead of 3 scripts, now we have 1 script to do this, to do this task. Oops, I clicked one too many buttons. Okay, and so we've got about, it's 35 after. So I want to show you a couple other things. In this case, we are going to show you how to do this. Maybe you don't have the expertise on your team to write AI util ... So this would be more the codeless user, right? So in this case, they're going to come in. They are going to activate a iOS iPhone 6, and these are going to write a very similar script. So in this case, they've got the control panel up with the application loaded. They are inspecting this object, and they're going to say, hey, I want you to click the hamburger menu. So they click the hamburger menu on the right-hand side. Now they want to go in there and click the profile button. So very similar to the script beforehand, but instead of having them write out AI util.device.click, this is more for the codeless user, right? So in this case, they are going through and doing the same test without having to without having to code anything, right? This is basically how you would create a test case, a manual test case, right? So the AI objects are picking these up, clicking through. I'm going to fast forward just a little bit here, because as you can tell, it's just doing that. Every time the screen changes, they're coming back over here to the Object Identification Center and refreshing that. But what I want to show here is about 2:30 is when that kicks in. So we'll scan forward a little bit. This is all well and good, but what happens if we have something that AI doesn't recognize? So in this case, in this point in the script, they decided that they wanted to click the details button, and AI was like, I don't know. UFT doesn't know where to click here. So what we've done with UFT is we've launched what we call the feedback tool. So this would be us are you, as you're going through here, saying, hey, I had a hard time, the system had a hard time identifying this. So as a feedback tool, you are going to take a copy of the screen, or excuse me, a screenshot of that, highlight what you said that we didn't really get it right, feed it in, add a comment, and send that feedback. So that now comes to Micro Focus, and we're going to use that screen and say, hey, we messed that up. Let's retrain, well, not retrain, let's train our neural network to identify that a little bit better. All right. So what we're doing here in this case, and just in the interest of time, I'm going to pause and skip towards the end here. But what we're doing here is we just reloaded another script. In this case, just add to cart. We didn't care about the details here. So very similar to the scripts that you've seen earlier before. Now I want to run this on 3 different devices, right? So Micro Focus offers the ability for you guys to run on as many devices as you want with some other additional tools. UFT out of the box lets you do one device kind of connected to your device. But in this case, we're going to run on an Android device, an Apple device, and a mobile web device. So I'm going to hit play here and kind of scan through faster. So you see the first one going through, it's going to pull up the Android device and run this very simple script. Well, this script. And then we're going to skip forward a little bit. You can see everything is happy-go-lucky. Now we're going to do it on iOS device. Skip forward a little bit, and voila, we're going to pop through on the mobile device there. And just like before, in our test results, we're going through, and in this case, we said click on the hamburger menu. This is UFT coming back and say, this is the button I clicked when we were going through. And if we keep playing through, we'll see all the other ones that it picked up. Okay, so that covers our 2 squares here. Well, not squares, our shapes here. Now turn to the native language processing.
Paul, question?
Yes, of course.
So just kind of summarize, what tools are we looking at here?
So far right now, we've been showing you UFT. We've recently renamed a lot of our applications just to keep you guys on your toes. So right now we're using UFT for the scripting, and then we're using UFT Mobile to get you that device management. So with UFT Mobile, you guys can stand up your own device farm, or we can help you with that. So I was the guy straight out of college in 2000 that had to do the testing, and this was back in the day when we had laptops operating different than desktops, Safari and Chrome and Opera, and you had to test 3 versions of each one of those, the current one plus 1 back or 2 back. So I was the guy, my cube was the lab at the time. So I had all the laptops bouncing around in there. The device management was way too much entertainment. I think I had about 30 different desktops and laptops in my cube because we didn't have another place to create those devices. So UFT Mobile for cell phones, instead of having the developer keep track of which device is plugged in, or the tester having which one's plugged back in, they can use UFT Mobile, and you can have a centralized device farm for that. And you can easily check devices out for your runs. And as a developer, or as an automation, or as just a manual tester, you can go ahead and check out devices. So if you're an Android person, you can test on iOS, we can do that farm. So far we've showed UFT and that. We are progressing this forward into our other applications. We are trying to get it done in UFT. And out of the gate, we went more with the mobile approach. In more recent versions of UFT, we're opening that up.
Great, thanks.
Any other question?
I think that's it for now.
And as you guys can tell, I'm used to not sitting and talking. I'm a walker, so I just got up there and walked off screen before realizing I'm staring at a webcam. So,
yeah. So I just reiterate to the people that are on the call: you've got any question, whether it's related specifically to what we're doing here with UFT, but in general, you've got, not only is Paul on the call and doing his presentation, but there's a number of Micro Focus people on this call as well, so that might be able to address whatever question, concern, whatever you have. So again, feel free to ask any questions. We want to make this as interesting as possible for you, the end user. That's the only reason Vivit exists, is to support you and help you grow your careers. And if we get feedback, just like when I was doing this all the time, I check with our members, I check with the team and find out what do our customers, what do our members need to know to help them. And that seemed to be great. So more feedback, the better.
Yeah. No, thanks. And I realize I'm kind of blowing through a lot of this information fairly quickly. Just want to be cognizant of everyone's time. We've got about 20 minutes left, and a couple of more things to show through here. And then, if there's general Q&A at the end, if you wanted to ask a question towards the end, I just don't want to go too far over time, because I know we all have day jobs that we need to get back to. So if there's something that interests you here and you don't have the time today to talk about it, please don't hesitate to reach out. We can set up more one-on-one time, and I'd love to talk to you guys about this. But further ado, let's talk about natural language processing. So again, this would probably be a little Q&A back and forth, volunteers and things like that. But in the interest of time, let's get it down here. So let's do a simple task, right? I want you to open up Google and search for a dog in there, right? So humanly, or in your brain, you probably go, okay, I'm going to go open up a browser. I'm going to go to type in google.com, or click the icon and go to google.com. I'm going to type dog in the search box. I'm going to look at the search results, and voila, life is good, right? That's a very human approach to doing this. Up until recently, this is something that computers have struggled to do, or applications to do. I say up until recently because voila, welcome to native processing language. So what we're doing here is, and this one plays pretty quick, but we're creating a script here. We are going to view the profile, and this is GitHub. So as I type here, let me rewind just a little bit here. Come on, there we go. So click your dashboard. So if I hit play, we're going to keep a look on our right-hand side here. So as I type here, UFT is popping in and going, you said dashboard. So let me recognize what dashboard looks like. So it's going to highlight, and it's going to say, this is my best guess so far. Is this where you're asking me to type? And now it's saying, click your dashboard link. Okay, well, I highlighted dashboard. I narrowed it down to this. Now I'm fairly confident this is where you want me to type, or click in this case. And that's what we did. So we now click that and we went over. Now in the next script, or next step of the script, we are going to click the image. So as we're typing that image at the, and see, like I said, this one goes fairly quickly, so I didn't hit pause just enough. But we're clicking the image at the top. But UFT went in there and said, okay, as you're typing, click the image. I'm going to try to recognize all the images on that screen. And man, that is so quick. I'm going to have to put a pause there. So here, as you can tell here, it highlighted all the images and said, basically gave it a grade. Red, I don't think you mean that. Yellow, maybe that. Darker orange, so on and so forth. But since you told me to click the image at the top, this is what I believe you want me to do. So I'm going to highlight that section in green. And in this case, that is what we wanted. So it's a very powerful engine there to get you to the right thing. And as you can tell with the native processing language kind of approach to this script, very much like, hey, view the profile is what I want to do. So click the dashboard link, click the image at the top, do all the following steps. And that's just native language, right, for the person talking out. So your codeless tester, or somebody that doesn't really understand testing out right, or just wants to write a script, they can do it this way, and UFT will pick it up and run with it. All right, so last little bit for me, and then we'll turn it back over to Vivit to close up. But so software automation, how can AI happen? So this was our screen, our slide from before, and these were were our challenges. And now let's look at those benefits, right? So fast pace, well, we're now increasing the reliability of your automation. We've eliminated the skill barrier, so hopefully, and how many scripts you actually need. So we're with native processing language and easier scripts to write. Now there isn't quite as many skill barriers to get your automation testing up and running. And we're reducing maintenance, right? So if the login screen or the hamburger menu goes from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen, or somebody changes the button from login to sign in, your scripts should still work for you. And one thing I forgot to mention as we were going through the scripts, but is very important that I want to get across here too. You can still use your old scripts. We're not asking you to throw those away. So, app.device.button.click, that still works. You can add in the AI utils to that. And as your maintenance goes through those scripts, every time you touch them, if you'd like, you can go ahead and update the AI util approach of that. If you want to keep certain scripts the way they are, because they're tried and true, nothing will ever change, you can go ahead and do that. One script can run both AI and the heritage scripting language through that, or you can replace all of them and go that path. So they play nice together. And like I was saying before, this is free. So if you already own UFT or if you buy UFT, this comes along with the package. Okay, so in today's example, what we basically said is we showed you the old way of scripting and now the AI util approach to that, how one script works on Android, iOS, and web, all in one to click on the login and purchase things. So our solution, one script, like I was saying, execution in parallel with the AI, reduce your maintenance, all that fun. So that was my spiel. We've got a little bit, about 10 minutes left. I want to thank you for your time and open it up to some questions, if there are any there, or comments.
Here, let me just pull this up. So, to earn your lunch today, please enter something in the chat window like, number one, was this relevant to you today? Was this conversation relevant? Just please enter it in the chat window. I just want to make sure that everybody's on the line is alive, and kind of go from there. But not seeing a whole lot of feedback. Yes, thank you, Jeff. That this was useful for Jeff at Owens Corning.
And my boss is on here, so if you want to chat in here, how awesome I am, I'm sure he'll take those comments for my yearly review later in life. So,
Ibrahim, good to hear from you. It's been a while. There was a wealth of good information here. Here's one. When is the next release of UFT 1?
So this is a question I can answer. My name is Brian Cole at Microfocus. So I work with Paul, helping him in the field. The short answer is the 29th of April, 2020. So 5 days from now will be the next version. And the version that you need of UFT1 to have AI capability for just mobile platforms is version 14.53, which was released almost a year ago at this point. It was June of 2019. To get web platform support for the AI utilities, you are going to need to wait 5 more days. That's being released in 5 days.
Great. And Andrew, thanks. His comment was, yes, honestly, I didn't know UFT had come so far. We're still on an older version. So
it is fundamentally going to transform the space of functional test automation. If we no longer are reliant on object properties, which developers love changing those inexplicably, it seems like as from build to build, and the scripts continue to work and be resilient, we are talking about reducing the script rework time the QA has to spend by, so far our initial pilots are between 70 and 90% reductions. I mean, it's a dramatic time saving that we're seeing out of QA teams, which is directly tied to DevOps release velocity. As you try to move things from dev to ops, you can't become a bottleneck in the QA team. You have to be much more resilient and faster, and this is absolutely a response to that motion.
And I just want to add something there too. So back in, being back in the customer days, which wasn't all that long ago, but I used to not I would be, one or two full releases behind on ALM or UFT and things like that, simply because in the past we've had maintenance issues, right? As a company with Micro Focus, we've definitely switched. The releases are much more robust when they come out. Being more on the current release is definitely something more valuable. So not just with UFT, right? UFT's got a bunch of new things coming into it. It has had it and will continue to have ALM, all those ones. So staying more current on your UFT or ALM or Octane or any of the Micro Focus ones, it's a lot easier to do now. The releases are a lot more robust. So staying on the more current version gets you more benefit than, oh, I went up to the wrong version. Now I got to roll back. And we used to have all those problems back in the HP and Mercury days, right? So we used to, I know personally as a customer, I was always 1 to 2 full releases back. That problem is basically non-existent anymore moving forward. So definitely stay more current on your releases for these applications.
Great. Yeah, Bernard said yes, this was really helpful. He's down, I think, at Procter & Gamble. Robert is getting the resources to upgrade. He says getting the resources to upgrade is a channel. I think he meant challenge, is a challenge. So finding people with the skill set, that's a never-ending battle since I've been in IT for 40 years.
Yeah. And we have ways to help with that. If you want to reach out, we can have that conversation, right? We have internally, we have professional services. We work with other partners.
Right.
We have a lot of our customers also starting to move, and not really in the UFT space, but more with ALM and Octane and those kind of tools, moving to more of a SaaS. So I know when I used to upgrade ALM, it was weeks worth of prep and finding the right server and getting the server people to do that that 6-week time frame just to get to a point where I could upgrade a server. That was reality. With SaaS, with oversimplification, right? You can email the SaaS coordinator and say, hey, I want to be on the newest version Monday when I come in. They work with you and you leave Thursday or Friday, you come in Monday, you have the newer version of that. So that's really helpful. You might want to take a look at that when we go down and we can have these conversations with you guys.
Yeah.
And speaking of partners that help doing this, Jim Copio's on the line, and you said easy, fast, modernized. Wow, love the innovation realized. So he's one of these guys that is out talking to customers and helping them do their thing at Whitlock. So Andrew Pickens, that's us. He's smiling. So
older versions, I'm guessing, is when that one popped in, of keeping the current version or the older version and not hopping on the newer releases. Yeah. You're not the only one. We're trying to help with you guys on that one, getting more current with these.
John Phillips, first exposure to UFT, excellent information. And so thank you, John, on that. Jim, another anything like this for Loadrunner?
So I can answer that question as well. This is Frank again. So at the moment, no. We are starting our AI journey in terms of the functional problem, because it is a much more pervasive issue across our customer base. But the whole reason that this was built as a separate SDK and not just something that's included as part of UFT is because we have every intention of migrating it into all of our other products. So you will see something related to performance testing in the future. I don't have a timeline on that at this point, however.
I imagine you've got a lot of Loadrunner customers out there that have been using the product.
We would dearly love to have this problem solved. You bet.
Mm-hmm.
You guys know if there's any cost to the virtual universe that's coming up?
There is not. We have waived the registration costs.
Okay, cool. Because for those of you that are on the line, I know when I used to go to these conferences every year, I'd come back to our lug and try to bring the highlights, because 90% of you couldn't make it to the event physically. Too much money, time, whatever. So due to the coronavirus scenario that we're in right now, Micro Focus is doing their whole conference that was supposed to be in San Diego in May. It's going to be online. So you can find it on our website, on the Vivit website. We're promoting it, LinkedIn, Micro Focus's website. So you can grab these sessions. There's no cost, right from your desk. in your bedroom, wherever you are. Take advantage of it. Here's one from Andrew Pickens. How backwards compatible will the new version of UFT be with Quality Center?
1501 works back as far as 12.01.
Okay. How can I run tests on multiple devices?
So there's a number of different mechanisms. Just using UFT, unfortunately, the answer is because we only allow you to plug in essentially one device at a time to recognize the individual phone or tablet that you're plugging in. You would run the UFT test on your iPad, unplug it, plug in an iPhone, run your test again, unplug it, plug in an Android device, run the test again. So it's somewhat manual at that point. This is really where we start talking about the advantages of having a lab of devices that give you a software way of accessing them. And that's really all that UFT Mobile is. It's let's plug all these devices into a UFT Mobile server that will then digitally allow remote connections to those. They don't have to be physically co-located with the machine.
And, Paul and Brian, what kind of questions do you usually get when you're trying to talk through this product or this solution? Anything that you haven't heard today that comes up fairly regularly from the communities?
One of the more common ones that tends to come up that we see is related to something called the efficiency paradox. So there is an inherent fear, especially from managers who have spent a long time building out a test automation team, and they have a lot of this UFT knowledge built into their teams, and they're looking at these types of innovations thinking, is this going to obsolete my team? And what we've found consistently year after year after year is that automation efforts, when the technology becomes easier to use, expand, and the teams actually need to grow larger because the quality and the scope of the testing effort increases. And it's tied directly to the fact that of most IT budgets, the vast majority is spent on running operations and break fix and operations. It's a pittance that actually makes its way down into development and QA compared to that. And anything we can do on the dev and QA side to improve quality, to reduce the operational headaches of running software in a production environment has a dramatic ROI on the bottom line. And your teams never get reduced. They never constrict as a result of this. The better quality that you can deliver and the more of it you can deliver, the better off the whole organization is. And it's very easy to kind of start quantifying those metrics. This is also something that Micro Focus can help with. Not a software solution we can sell, but more guidance on how to describe the value of the QA effort you're doing. How do you report it internally and drive that business conversation about your worth to the team?
Yeah, that's great. Paul, do you think everyone's earned their lunch today?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. So we'll can, I think, Terry, I'm not sure how this works, but I guess we'll be sending them an email with a gift card. So yeah, watch for that along with your check from the federal government whenever that comes. And but awesome. I think we're good, guys, unless there's any closing thoughts.
Uber Eats, like I said, sandwich, cool sandwich.
That's right. I like that, Jim. Well, thanks,
add that for the next slide.
Are there other slides left here? The back end?
No, it's just your final thank you from Vivit.
Okay, got it. All right. So I
Awesome,
think with
guys.
that, we're done today. And believe me, you ask and we'll deliver. So if you've got questions, you need help with something, send it through. If you're not getting results through your own channel or whatever, just let us know. We'll try to help you. But we should be doing this once a month. Have some topic for the lug and get the interaction going. So it's for you. You come up with the questions and we'll try to address it. So Paul, thanks for today. You did a great job. Brian, thanks for filling in and answering those other tough questions. And the whole Micro Focus team that's on the call. And again, Ohio users, looks like you may be out of the house here soon. So take care. We'll see you next time.
Take care, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye, everyone.
See ya.
Bye.
Everybody's leaving. We're not recording.